ready to go back through. Oh, it's good to see everybody this evening. I bring you gratitude from the Deaton family. Many of you over the last, at least couple of months have been in touch with them and prayerful about them and responding to them. And they're grateful. They're tired. Frank fought a valiant fight. And we all knew Frank was stubborn. And I say that in the most loving way I know how to say it, because I had just a special relationship with him as a mentor through the years. He had reminded me on a number of occasions. He says, I was there when you were hired. I said, yes, Frank, I remember that. I remember that. But love Frank and love his family, and we'll have an opportunity even later this week, I'm sure, at some point for us to express that, as we will tomorrow morning, if you have an opportunity to express our presence. I know during the week it's tough, but if you can break away and be there with the Carroll family tomorrow, I know that will be greatly appreciated as well. We missed an announcement this morning, and Andy will shoot me. There is a meeting going on this week at Center Grove. Brother Derek Franklin, I think we've met him and spent some time with him. He will be there through Wednesday night of this week, 7 o'clock each night. So be mindful of the Center Grove Road Church and encouraging them maybe tomorrow or Tuesday night if you can, about 7 o'clock. It's local. Take advantage of that great opportunity. I started singing, and one of the songs got me. Soon, very soon, we're going to see the King. And as we've even mentioned to some of our loved ones who have made a transition. Another song Frank started singing the other day, and about 2 days ago, I think Olean was there too, and he sang the song that he taught us here many years ago, In His Time. And I remember that song very fondly. It reminded me when he used to sing. He used to tease me with it. I can't remember the word, the title of it, but it was the one that started that Don't Exalt the Preacher. It's Lift Him Up. That's the name of the song. It's about lifting Jesus up. And we had a good laugh thinking about that song too. So, but look over in Genesis. I almost started a series tonight, but I'm going to wait, because with the transition with camp and with Horizons, I'm going to be on a couple of Sundays, and the one I want to start needs to be continuous. Hope Sunday evening is going to be a very special opportunity. We're going to do what I've thought about doing for years, and it's not going to be a short series. It's not going to be a 5 or 6 or 8 lesson series. This is going to be one that goes on for a while on Sunday night. And I got 2 reasons behind this. One is to try to maybe encourage some of our folks that aren't here tonight. It's called One Story. It's been initiated. Some of you in the name Robert Oglesby may ring a bell from over in Texas. Several years ago, probably 30 years ago, he did a video series called One Story, and it's a look at the Bible. Daryl's nodding his head. He's familiar with that. And it's a great way to actually study with folks as well, to look at the Bible as one story. And we're going to start that, Lord willing, probably the 2nd Sunday in July. That'll be that series starting up. So next couple of Sunday nights, it's going to be some thoughts, I hope, that might be helpful as we travel this journey called life. In Genesis 37, everybody in this house is familiar with Joseph. You know Joseph, coat of many colors, his story. And a lot of times we look at Joseph's story, we look at the way God took care of him. What I want to help you with tonight and help us with is many times in our lives we don't know what God's plan is for us. And maybe it's a process of trying to figure out, what does He want me to do? Where does He want me to be? What does He want me to figure out with my life? And how am I going to be a part of His scheme? Joseph, the way he lived his life, we really find out a lot in chapter 45, and we'll eventually end up there. Because of what he says later in his life about his previous experiences. How it doesn't embitter him, how it doesn't get him out of sorts. But I want to look at 4 special things tonight that I think can apply to any of us in reference. We're going to read this initial part of the story. No way to read the entirety of the story. It goes from 37 to 45. Now Jacob dwelt in the land where his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. This is the story of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers, and the lad was with his sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought a bad report of them to his father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. Also he made him a tunic of many colors. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him. Now Joseph had a dream and told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more. So he said to them, "Please hear this dream which I have dreamed. There we were, binding sheaves in the field. Then behold, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. And indeed, your sheaves stood all around and bowed down to my sheaf." His brothers said to him, "Shall you indeed reign over us? Or shall you indeed have dominion over us?" So that they hated him even more for his dreams and his words. Then he dreamed still another dream and told it to his brothers. About this time, I've not shared that next dream. What about you? If it had been me, I'd kind of at this point go, maybe some things are better left unsaid. But Joseph, look, I've had another dream. And this time the sun, the moon, and the heaven stars bowed down to me. So he told it to his father and his brothers, and his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall your mother and I and your brothers indeed come to bow down to the earth before you?" And his brothers envied him, but his father kept the matter in his mind. Have you ever met a special person? Somebody that's maybe not like everybody else. Now that, if I get you to think, back up a minute and think about it, that applies to everybody in this room. We are all special in our own way. We are all unique. It's just by perception sometimes that the assumption is made, well, you're just really different than everybody else. The text just shares the story. It doesn't make a lot of judgments about Joseph's seeming arrogance in one sense. The really unique thing about Joseph's journey is it's really hard to find anything at flaw in Joseph's characters except for his blatant honesty. And when you think about the specialness of Joseph, when we were working with the PowerPoint, this is all popping up at once, so they're not done it the way I wanted to do it, but we're just going to work with this. He was different, but being different's okay, as long as that difference fits into the God's mold. A lot of people give Jacob a hard time because his father loved him more. Any of us as parents, any of us in situations with our children, realize, we have a great deal to do with cultivating personalities, but there is a sense in which we know, even in ourselves and even in our experience with our children and other children. I look at even now the difference between Ren and Nora. Early on, before really any signature influence, their own spirit, their own difference, the person that they are, as that develops, we're told that our personality is established at the age of 8. And that a great deal of other challenge and change and development doesn't take place, but just an overlapping of how that personality develops and becomes. And we can make better choices. We can choose to change if we've got flaws and things that we need to alter in our personalities. We can be cognizant of those. We can change those as we develop and grow and mature. There's bad personality traits we can be altered and developed a little. But here you've got Joseph, and he is a very unique individual in that he shares this dream, and even realizing the tension that it causes, continues to share. You see, he's got a vision of something that he's going to be. And it starts fairly 17 years of age. He's made a decision, and I don't want to get ahead of myself because he's going to let us know later that he knew that early on. And that's one of the key things to realize in my own specialness, in my own uniqueness. the reason I do the things I do, the reason I say the things I do, are they because of me? Or are they because of a greater purpose that I realize? And see, I think that's what's happened. That with Joseph, it's obvious in the journey that he takes, because it's a really unusual, it's a painful journey. Joseph gets ready to embark on something that no child should ever do, and that's being hated by every sibling that he has. And that hate accelerates to the level, and those of you that know the story, I look around and pretty much assume this is the Bible story familiar. They sell him. They initially think about killing him. I'm going to tell you the quick version of this. And then the older brother says, no, let's just sell him. And the group comes by, and he fully had, plans maybe to append that or change it later, but it didn't happen. He sends him off. He's taken captive. And it's the experiences of his life that form him, and that make Joseph the person that eventually becomes second in command in Egypt. But this whole process, and that's the thing, that in any moment in our lives, whether it's the current moment, it's a past moment, if it's the potential of looking forward to say, what are my plans in the future, any of those moments are going to have a great deal of impact and bearing on who I'm going to become if my choices, my intention is always to do one signature thing along that journey. And Joseph's signature choice at every moment of his journey was, I don't care how I'm treated, I don't care what happens, I'm going to please God. Now I ask you, if that is our primary motivation in every decision that we make, in every move that we make, isn't it potential that we're going to be more effective than we could possibly be if that's not our motivation? You see, he was a special person because there was a special plan. He didn't understand the dream. There is no interpretation of this particular dream. Many times when dreams are shared in the Old Testament, remember with Nebuchadnezzar, Joseph is the one. Now, you go, okay, wait a minute. Joseph had a dream. He became a dream interpreter. And that evidently was some spiritual gift that he had been given by God to be able to see or someone to share their dream. There are people who do this today. There are people who will, if you go with them and you talk to them about your dreams, they'll assess, they'll give you what they believe to be the interpretation of the dream. I'm not recommending that, because I just don't believe this is a special biblical case. This is where Joseph has a gift. He has something for you that no one else can do. See, that Joseph in his dreams, even in those moments, realized God's got a plan for me. I don't know what it's fully going to be. And he believed, even though that dream got him in trouble, even though that dream got him taken away from his home. Now, and this is that moment where I ask you a question in an introspective way I want you to consider. How many of your dreams have you ever just flat given up on? Because you think that's just not possible. That just makes absolutely no sense. I mean, at the age of 17, it had been real easy for Joseph to go. We don't have any of this information. I'm doing a little bit of psychological surmisal, so just if you'll allow some gravity there. But it would have been real easy for Joseph to go, if it's ticking my family off, and my dad is saying this is not a great idea, maybe I need to let this go. Maybe. Now what happens, God prompts this whole thing and is watching over it. There's an interesting thing that doesn't happen here that happens in another view. I think there's a great deal of similarity in what we see in Joseph's journey and in Job's journey. In Job's journey, we get a little bit more information. We get information that Satan's walking up and going, the reason he's not doing, not being unfaithful to you is because you're protecting him, you're taking care of him. I've got a feeling there's a similar thing going on. Later, 1 Timothy tells us that battle between the powers of good and evil and those skirmishes, I got a feeling that Satan's involved. I don't see God doing this. I see him allowing it to happen to Joseph so that through the journey he can grow. Because he knows Joseph's heart. And again, I'm getting ahead of myself because we find out a lot about this entire journey at the end of it. But I'm wanting to kind of equip us. If we see this in one individual, okay, if one person is willing to risk their family for a dream that he's convinced to be from God, that means it's a special plan. It brings special problems. 37 verse 18, I've kind of told you, but now when they saw him afar off, even before he came near them, they conspired against him to kill him. Verse 21, Reuben steps up and said, let us not kill him. Verse 28, the Midianite traders passed by, so the brothers pulled Joseph up, lifted him out of the pit, sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver, and they took Joseph to Egypt. Chapter 39 and verse 40, that's not right. It's verse 39. What did I do? I had a verse in mind here. Well, in chapter 39 and chapter 40, you have him serving Potiphar, you have him serving and interpreting the dreams while he's in prison, and it's those moments. See, it doesn't matter the situation you're in and what struggle you're going through. God, you got to know some things about God. He's always guiding you, he's always guarding you, and he's always growing you. And Joseph knew that. Joseph realized no matter what the situation that happens to me, I'm going to do the best I can. Joseph lived the principle that Paul will later make in Philippians. I have learned in whatever state I am therewith to be content. And to make the best of any bad situation that I've encountered. When you look at chapter 39, Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard in Egypt, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man. He was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all he did to prosper in his hand. Joseph found favor in his sight and served him. Then he made him overseer of his house and all that he had put under his authority. Find out a lot about this young man, away from home, away from his family, and it doesn't matter the situation that he gets into, the difficulties that he encounters, he always lets God guide him. And the choices that he makes, it's obvious to see in his manner, in the things that he's doing, that he is a successful individual, and he's successful because he's doing things God's way. We've always talked about that with the story of Joseph. How easy would it have been for Joseph to have been one of the most bitter individuals potentially possible? Because of the way he'd been treated by his family. And inevitably you hear individuals, and this across the board in our world, there is obviously the breakdown of family, and there is obviously the turmoil and the tension of homes and difficulties and brokenness. But the signature thing is, it doesn't matter. All of us know of individuals that have come from very difficult starts, maybe very difficult parental situations where their parents didn't treat them the way they should have treated them, but it didn't matter. That person rose above that and did not allow their environment and their experience to create with them an inability to be successful. Joseph could have easily used the excuse, I was mistreated ever since. My brothers didn't even like me. Do you realize there's not a moment of that anywhere in the story with Joseph? I'm guessing, but I got a feeling that there was never that's not fair from the lips of Joseph. For whatever reason, he had an ability to rise above any difficult situation. We go, well, every situation he gets in, he's blessed. Well, you know the story here. He is for a while until Satan once again uses another situation. He uses his brothers, he uses Potiphar's wife, who tempts him. And even in that moment, because what I love about the story of Joseph is that even in these difficulties, as God is guiding him and he's guarding him, he's growing him, he is always with him. And Joseph knows that. In 39, 1 through 3, as he serves, he sees God's with him. God even is with him in the moments of seduction with Potiphar's wife. If you'll notice, look at verse number 7. It came to pass, so these things, the master's wife, casting longing eyes on Joseph, and she said, lie with me. But he refused and said to his master's wife, look, my master does not know what is with me in this house, and he has committed all that he has to my hand. There is no greater in this house than I, nor has he kept anything from me but you, because you're his wife. How can I do this great wickedness? Listen, and sin against God. Joseph's not at home anymore. He's in a palace far separated from his home. I'm just going to use worldly reason here with you. Would it not be real easy for him to go, man, all my life I've been mistreated all my life. People have not, and here I'm in this situation, in this beauty. She is the wife of the Pharaoh. Beautiful. And who's going to know? Not Joseph. Joseph never, not only did he say it's not fair, he also said, no matter where I'm at, God knows. You've seen that phrase that people use a lot. They'll talk about another location. They'll mention a particular location and says, and what happens there stays there. I told you there's a sermon rejoinder to that. Yeah, but God's there too. And Joseph knew that at the very young age. Rejected her advances. He was with him even as a result, because here's a moment that, you could see Joseph having gone through this with his brothers and his family go, well, I kind of brought that on myself. I was the one that shared the dream. There's a part of him that could probably rationalize that out and said, the reason I'm in Egypt is because I opened my big mouth and I should have kept it shut, so I'm just going to have to live with this and deal with it. But he did everything right. And this was right. He denied the advances of Potiphar's wife, didn't give in to her seduction, and he still ends up in trouble. He's in prison. What's he going to do? Well, I'm going to be the best prisoner that I can possibly be. Really, Joseph? Yep. I'm just going to do the right thing even when I'm in the wrong place. Wow. That is just one of the most powerful lessons in the Old Testament with Joseph. The Lord was with Joseph, no matter what happened in all of his life. When you look over, and there's so many things in this story I want to share, but look, he gets promoted back, but verse 41, chapter 41. It came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh had a dream. Behold, he stood by the river. Suddenly there came up out of the river 7 cows, fine looking and fat, and they had fed in the meadow. And behold, 7 other cows came up after them out of the river, ugly and gaunt, and stood by the other cows on the bank of the river. And the ugly and gaunt cows ate up the 7 fine looking and fat cows. So Pharaoh awoke. He slept and dreamed, and the second time, and suddenly 7 heads of grain came up on one stalk, plump and good. Then behold, 7 thin heads, highlighted or blighted by the east wind, sprang up after them, and 7 thin heads devoured the 7 plump and full heads. So Pharaoh awoke, and indeed it was a dream. Now it came to pass in the morning that the spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all its wise men. And Pharaoh told his dreams, but there's no one who can interpret them for Pharaoh. Look down at verse 12. Now there was a young Hebrew man with us there, a servant of the captain of the guard, and we told him, and he interpreted our dreams for us. To each man he interpreted according to his own dream. And it came to pass, just as he interpreted for us, so it happened, he restored me to office, and he hanged him. He finally remembered. 2 years in prison. And Pharaoh brings him out. And he answers Pharaoh's dream. And he gets placed back in power again. From the palace to the prison to palace, the Lord is with Joseph all throughout this. Now for just a moment, hit a pause button. In your life, have you given God ample credit for every part of your journey? Thought about this, even especially this afternoon as I was trying to think of these thoughts and thinking about Frank and thinking about Caleb and our journey. If you'd asked me 35 plus years ago, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, some of the ways we've gone, some of the things we've experienced, it wouldn't have been how I would have planned it out maybe. But God always uses, and it hit me thinking about this lesson and the song that Frank started singing again the other day, in His time. Because you know what happens so much is because it's in my time. Because we get really involved in making our choices and decisions. And many times we'll angst over them and we'll pray over them, we'll think about them. But do we really, in the fullest sense, do we say, God, no matter what happened, we'll sing the song. I thought at one point when I said, if Elliot's there, there may be the chance that we sing that song. It's Bob's song too. You remember the words? I care not today what tomorrow may bring, whether shadow or sunshine or rain. Really? We can sing it. Joseph lived it. Just my day isn't based on what happens. That's not what's going to trigger how I feel or what I do. What I'm going to do every day when I get up is I'm going to get up this day and to the best of my ability, I'm going to simply try to do what God wants me to do no matter what happens. No matter what hits me, no matter what hurts me or tries, I'm going to live today the best I can for God, not for myself. Now, the powerful thing in the story of Joseph is, in the down times and the up times, it always seems to work in such a way that eventually, because here's the question I want to ask you. Flip over to 45. Genesis 45. This is that moment we get Joseph talking about his life and looking back. I'm going to read this quickly. Joseph couldn't restrain himself before all those who stood by him, and he cried out, "Make everyone go out from me." So no one stood with him while Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians in the house of Pharaoh heard it. Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Does my father still live? But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed in his presence. Joseph said to his brothers, please come near to me. So they came near and said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But now do not be therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves, because you sold me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life. Now, I challenge you to go all the way back to 37 and read verse for verse all the way through to 45. And I want you to find a spot in there where God told Joseph verbally, I'm involved in this whole thing and it's all going to work out. It's not there. It's not there. At this moment, as he looks back, for these 2 years famine has been in the land. There are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting, and God sent me before you. He says that 3 times. There's a signature reason. To preserve a posterity for you in the earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So now it is not you who sent me here. You didn't do that to me. Now most of us go, yes they did. That mean no account group of brothers you had sold you into slavery. In fact, they were going to kill you. No, God sent me here. God did this. There's one thought I want to share. The sooner we get okay with what God's using us for, the better off we're going to be. Shadow, sunshine, or rain. The Lord I know ruleth o'er everything, and all of my worry is what? Vain. Can't change a thing. What I can do, and what will make a difference in this world and make a difference in my life, is live for God regardless. Amen. To me, that's the signature message of Joseph. It's so easy sometimes to look at our lives and go, you know, I'm trying to be faithful. I'm doing what God wants me to do, and things just aren't really going my way. Well, maybe they're going God's way, and that's what's going to eventually make a difference in who you are. Maybe we need to live each day going, well, but the people in my life, they're just making things tough. Well, God's letting them be there, so you live with them anyway. Love them anyway. See, that's a part of the process. Joseph knew that at an incredibly young age. He said, my life's not going to be about the various events that either make or break me. It's going to be about me living my life in a way that says, I'm going to trust God explicitly and absolutely. And I'm going to live my life that way. In His time. Not ours. We mess it up. That's how God is bigger than cancer. That's how nothing short of Satan getting in our way is going to stop us from seeing Him one day and hearing Him say, well done. What does that mean? That means today, like yesterday, I'm going to get up and do for God, for that day, whatever I can do, and live with whatever happens as a result. Joseph did that, saved a nation, because he had a dream that he didn't give up on. I hope your greatest dream is one day to walk and to talk forever with God. Do not give up on that. Do every day what it takes to finish that. If we can assist in any way in our initial penitent faith and God, confession of Jesus as Lord in baptism, rededication, something you're tired of walking around the house yourself. Share that with us and see how we can maybe be a source of encouragement and strength for you. Any way we can help, would you come as we stand and as we sing?